Hola, buenos días.
Good morning. For the Secretary, I would like to say that they have the data by regions. And to Mr. Schleicher, I would like to know, in this case, what is the solution, and if you think that new reform can give answers to the difficulties of Spanish students. Well, I do not have the data with me, and I think there are 3 regions that have not enough sample. Well, I think in Madrid, the Basque Country, and Catalonia. Well, I think we can give you these aspects out later. En la segunda parte de la cuestión, lo que se ve aquí.
Primarily a picture of what happens in the classroom. This is not about structures, is not about frameworks, it's really about the nature of the instructional environment, the methods being used predominantly in teaching. And this is the picture that you see here is really one that goes right across the board. In many classrooms, in many schools, you have too much emphasis on the reproduction of subject matter content. Students learn something, and too little emphasis on students' capacity to creatively make use out of that knowledge. So it's the issue is really related to the instructional system, the way teachers are prepared, and those kinds of issues.
Quería saber qué diferencias hay entre la prueba de lectura en papel y la prueba de lectura digital para que se dé ese menor rendimiento. Si es que era mayor la dificultad al hecho de que sea digital o qué ha sucedido. Gracias.
It's not necessarily more difficult. It requires a different type of skills. If you have a printed test, you see everything in front of you. You just have to read the text and use it. In a digital test, you have to build a mental representation of information that you may not have in front of you. What is the difference between a hypertext and a normal text? On a hypertext, you see a bit of the information in front of you, and you have to know. You have to be able to navigate. You have to sort of deal with much more complex textual structures. And it's this kind of dynamic thinking that is required that students struggle with. They can linearly read a text, like a printed text. They have no problems with decoding information. But students seem to have difficulty sort of to connect information, to think in structures that may not be immediately in front of them.
Sara Ramos, sorry, we had a problem with the sound. We cannot hear. Please, we cannot hear the question. There is a problem with the microphone. We cannot hear the question. Could you, the interpreter cannot hear the question. Sara Ramos from Spanish TV. We have talked a lot about the teachers, the importance of teachers, and I would like to know that you could say to give more autonomy to centers. We know what headmasters have to say, but well, we have the problem with the sound. We cannot hear the question. We are very much sorry, but we cannot translate. We cannot hear the question. The interpreter cannot hear the question. Okay, thank you. Well, it seems that teachers are so important in the improvement of the educational system. I would like to know if there will be changes. Yes, as I was mentioning, once the rules of the game are going to change after the approval of the LOMCE, the new regulation, teachers are going to lead the change. the one that has to take place in the schools. It has to really change radically methodology. So that's why we are going to try to help as much as possible. As I said, with the law and the approval of all the regulations that come from the law, we have highlighted important changes. First of all, more leading capacity of headmasters. After that, more autonomy of schools that are going to be able to make decisions that for now they had no possibility to maneuver. And now we can say that schools in that sense, teachers are going to have an important role to play. We have royal decree that has been approved for primary schools. We can say that curriculum are not going to be the only things that are going to be tested. That is a first guideline to know to what extent things have to change with regard to methodology, to modernize and to transmit this series of competencies to students. But on top of that, with the digital platform that the ministry is developing with cooperation of all regions, we are going to put at the disposal of teachers a series of courses that are going to be focusing on competence and skill acquisition so that they can be trained in something that is innovative in our system. And on the other hand, to have a platform where teachers can contribute with their own contributions and with regard to methodology, to share good practices, etc. And in countries where educational community has this kind of platform, the teacher participation has been very active, very dynamic, and that has allowed that, for example, good practices were spread in all the educational communities. So it's well, in line with the methodological change in the ministry, we do not only want to go in one direction activities, and only just put on the table how we think things have to change, but we have to make sure that we invite all teachers to participate with their own contribution and to just have a dialogue in a network that will be created between teachers so that they could develop by themselves new practices. On top of that, the last part of your question has to do with methodology, has to do with the conditions of of teachers' path. And at the beginning, we decided not to include it in the guarantee on quality assessment, but in all the projects that we are going to start working. We have started a debate with the unions for now, and now we still not have final decisions. Good morning. With these outcomes, I would like to ask if you think that we need a change in the methodology, that it will be radical, that it will be complete change of methodology, as I have understood. Also, you think that this is a task for teachers. It's something that it's in the hands of teachers? Well, the teachers are the one teaching, so that's why they are the stronger link of the chain. But the radical change will be related to what we have said in going from a system that now is just related to memorizing a book, and in a system where a student will have different information sources that would be able to make sure that he can get the most of this information, and to be able to solve a certain task that are complex, to be able to work in teams, to be creative, innovative, and that is a radical change that has to take place. According to the meetings we had with teachers, I think that for them, This is a challenge that is enticing in a certain way, because the fact of just going in a textbook and is not motivational for students, and also it is not giving the full capacity of development of teachers. So I think that what we have to do here is to make sure that we have the best potential of our teachers, and in that sense I understand the final responsibility of implementing this is in the hands of teachers, but it's a very attractive challenge for teachers that want to play a role much that is more creative and innovative.
Is not alone in this transition. In fact, most European countries and most countries in the world are undergoing similar changes. In the past, it was sufficient to teach students how to decode knowledge, how to sort of process knowledge that was established. Today, students need to be able to think for themselves, to extrapolate from what they know, to use and apply their knowledge very creatively. And that requires a different type of teaching that is much more personalized, much more differentiated, where teachers embrace differences in student learning styles with corresponding pedagogical practice. It's a very, very different approach of learning and teaching that we are seeing. I give you an example. You know, in the past, when students didn't know an answer, they could look it up in an encyclopedia. And they could believe that the answer in the encyclopedia was true. So all you need to teach the student is to decode that information. Today, you look the answer up on Google and you find 27,000 different answers. And you have to figure out, you have to navigate through that information. You have to make judgments. You have to critically review information, assess its relevance, its quality. That's the literacy of the 21st century, and that requires a very, very different approach to teaching and to learning. But once again, that is not something Spain is alone in. That is exactly the transition that we have seen in many of the highest performing education systems. You could see, for example, 10 years ago, a country like Japan would do very poorly on items requiring the construction of knowledge. In the latest PISA results, Japan did really well on that. You could actually see that the instructional system in Japan had changed fundamentally, going away from rote learning towards teaching students using their knowledge. So this is actually something that is achievable, that this is a change in pedagogical practice, in the kind of teaching that you can attain if the conditions are right and teachers are well prepared for that.
Hola, ¿por qué creen que el nivel sociocultural de los padres
the social-cultural level of parents is not as important as in other countries, and whether, for example, there are no big differences, there's not a big gap between boys and girls? Why do you think that is? Well, to give you answers, we can say that the message is the same as Andreas said at the beginning of the presentation. Spanish data highlight this heterogeneity in the students. It's not a problem that it can be limited and framed. It's not only for certain schools or for student profile. It has been mainstreamed and is for all schools almost, and all the profiles regardless of the different variables that we want to take into account. So our system is not just, for example, training students in problem resolution, and there are not variables that could help, for example, students to get better results, like in other countries that have, for example, the high educational level of parents could make the difference. But here we can say that here this variable has less impact because, and we can say that these children of those having more students studies is not as good as in other countries. And we can say, however, that for low educational skills in parents, that in that line, in a segment, we are doing as the rest of others, like other countries. And with the difference between boys and girls, I don't know why the difference, or more difference in other countries and not in Spain. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, one explanation is simply that overall the results, when results are better, you expect greater differentiation. When sort of equity at the price of mediocrity is not really sort of something you would aspire to. So you see few differences between socioeconomic groups, few differences between the genders. But the challenge is really to raise overall levels and to maintain the high levels of equity between genders in socioeconomic context. That's really the fundamental challenge for Spain to achieve. And one of the encouraging insights from PISA is that excellence and equity are not mutually exclusive policy objectives. You can actually strengthen excellence in the system, raise the bar, get more students to do well without losing an equitable distribution of learning outcomes, either between genders or between socioeconomic contexts.
Why are there more difference in Spain of those being children coming from immigrant backgrounds and those being native? Why do we have more differences in Spain? With this as a result that we have seen in different tests, and I think that it has to do with rigidity of the current system. It means that the current system is based on equity concept, and it means that all students have to be treated the same way. The LOMCE tries to have a flexible system that will personalize attention according to a new concept in equity. All students have to develop at full their potential independently of their social background. And it means that students can just outperform, and potentials will be different, however, and if it's not the idea to have similar results for all students, and it has been said by Andrea that normally mediocre results. So equity is in the uniformity in mediocrity is something that we can question, and in this new law we are trying to make a shift. There's lack of flexibility, of personal attention, just entails that those coming with difficulties, for example, in case of immigrants, cannot find the personalized attention so that they can develop at full their potential, and so that's why we have acute differences with regard to other countries. Last question. I would like to ask Andreas Lacher what is the fact of coming here to present this data is because you are concerned about the results in Spain. Is that the OECD is especially concerned with that?
No, I can't say that. I think the results for Spain are challenging. I think they highlight there are important challenges for the Spanish instructional systems. But we have presented actually all of our PISA reports in Spain. There's been a lot of interest in the public in international comparisons, and I think this is a very encouraging side. Spain is facing up to the realities, using international comparisons to see where it can improve, where it can learn from other education systems, and I think this is a good opportunity. The results that you see in this problem-solving assessment are really some that can be addressed by changes in instructional practice. Just a small comment to another example, the context of immigration. This is actually an area where we have seen very significant progress in many European countries over the last 10 years. In many countries, educators, schools have become better in rigorously diagnosing performance disadvantage. That's the biggest challenge that immigrant students face, that they just dumped into a classroom, they're treated like everybody else. Nobody knows what their difficulties in reading or other subjects are. They get no extra support, no extra help. And this is an area, a good example where we have seen very important improvements in many European countries. And again, it's important to look, to compare, to contrast, and then to see how to intervene. And the OECD is there to help countries, to help Spain analyze its relative strengths and weaknesses, and see how the challenges can be successfully addressed, really.